Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Phil and Ryan back on Listen Up, Ryan, on this. What is this, Ryan? Wednesday morning already. Here we are. Half of the week's already over. Yeah, we will be back with you guys for the last check-in, obviously against Texas on Sunday. But Ryan, we figured we'd do something a little bit different, and we figured that we would grade the month of November. Since that's it, November is a wrap on the season already. So you have December coming up as we flip the calendars here pretty soon. What, in 2-3 days, I believe, on Friday. So with that said, Ryan, we're going to save our grades for last on this video. A, B, C, D, or F. What is your grade for the UConn Huskies women's basketball team for the month of November? And then we want to see everybody else's grade in the comments. So Ryan, let's start off with you. I know you have to analyze a little bit, I guess, break down game by game maybe, or what's happened so far where it might have lowered your grade even more. But again, don't tell us until the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to kind of grade the month of November. So many things to go off of, so many things to review throughout the month in just one short video. But I'm going to try to give my best summary. I'll start at the beginning when UConn scored 102 points against Dayton to open the season. The vibes were immaculate, energy was high. We thought UConn looked like a championship team. And then just 4 days later, UConn travels to North Carolina and gets beaten by a very good and at the time a very overlooked NC State team. And then we then realized maybe UConn isn't quite there yet. Maybe they need a couple more games under their belt and things will straighten out. UConn handled Maryland pretty easily at home, and next travels to Minnesota, where UConn surprisingly struggled to pull away from Minnesota in that game. And their two most recent games in the Cayman Islands, where before those games even started, we learned that AZ Fudd is going to miss the rest of the season. The Huskies play and lose to another very good team in the UCLA Bruins, and then play Kansas the very next day. And again, it was a surprise that UConn struggled to pull away from Kansas and to get separation in that game. UConn now, they stand at 4-2, ranked 11th in the AP poll, and now face another top 5 team, third-ranked Texas in Austin on Sunday. We knew the schedule wasn't going to be easy going in. We reviewed it multiple times in the offseason. UConn, those two losses, they've lost to two very good teams, UCLA, and what was the other team? I'm
Is
drawing a
is
blank.
Texas, you said the top 5, so Texas is number 10, right?
Yeah, Texas actually ranked 5th now, or Texas ranked 3rd, NC State ranked 5th. UConn already losing to number 2 Bruins and number 5 NC State. Hopefully they don't drop a third one to Texas. But
Yeah.
UConn on the other side have won 4. But all of them are against unranked opponents. Maryland, of course, was ranked, and now they have dropped below the top 25. So they really don't have a statement win or a win that kind of secures them to really be in the top 10 for the AP poll. I think a lot of concern right now going around with how the team's playing, especially on the offensive side of things, kind of look lost to time, out of sync. I feel like there can be a little bit more energy, maybe the overall, offensive efficiency just isn't quite there yet. On defense, I think it's pretty solid. I still feel like there can be a little bit more intensity at times. I feel like sometimes these opponents driving the ball down the lane way too much. UConn may be allowing too many easy buckets at times, but I think the energy intensity for the whole team maybe needs to go up a little bit as we reach the month of November. And lastly, the last thing I want to speak about the injury concerns. I think it can be very deflating for the players. And I think over these years now, it's been very deflating for the players when different players on the team have to keep going in and out of the lineup. The lineup's always changing. No one really knows who's going to be available for the next game at times. But we already know Yana and AZ out for the season. Very unfortunate. Those two players were going to be a huge part of this season. Of course, Caroline Ducharme missed the last 2 games, and it seems like her head and neck injuries unfortunately won't go away. And Paige Becker's playing amazing basketball, still has the thumb cast on her thumb, but it seemed like she was limping a little bit in those 2 games for the Cayman Islands. I think that's something to just keep an eye on throughout the season. Hopefully, Paige can make it through the season unscathed without any injuries, but that's just the last thing that this team would need at this point.
Yeah, again, I think on the offensive side of the ball, we talked about moving the ball more in the month of November. Yeah, to be honest with you, Ryan, I think that it, at least for me, obviously, because we've seen a lot of this, we've covered a lot of these games on this podcast without Paige Beckers playing at all, sideline due to injury. So I think it raises a grade for me just a little bit. Obviously, with the news of AZ Fudd, then it seems like with this team, like remember what Gino said in the press conference when we sat in that night. He goes, "It's like there's always something." There's always something that we have to deal with. Well, guess what, Ryan? I mean, that something is, you raise the grade. You think the grade's going up according to this episode that we're doing, referencing to the grade for November. You think the grade's going up, Ryan, but then the grade goes back down, right? So it's always something, and that's what sometimes you call me in the morning and you're like, Phil, it's always something. And I'm like, well, right. Sometimes that's how it is. Hey, let's get into comments and then we will head on out. We will get our final grade in for the month of November. Let's go on over to Bill Nichols. Sadly, this year looks a lot like last with some hopefuls. Injuries. Yana would be starting center. AZ, Ducharme, Patterson, and DeBerry, who is not a D1 player. Tired of fans bashing the coaches and arguing. DeBerry just needs more minutes. Seriously, the freshmen are getting minutes, but it'll take time. No Final Four this year. Whoa, Ryan.
Yeah, I think, when we start racking up a couple losses, and of course they have been the very good teams, but anytime UConn loses, there's some demise towards the organization that Gino also bring up in the press conference. But yeah, I think, UConn just kind of goes into panic mode, and we start to worry a lot when UConn just drops a couple games. But it's obviously still a long season ahead of us. Still a lot of time to figure some things out. But that's a very good point about Yana. Not only was she going to be a huge part, she probably was going to be the one starting beside of Aaliyah Edwards in most of these games. So it's really unfortunate. 2 players that would have been in the starting lineup out for the season. So it can't get much worse than that.
How about Marcia Clark, Ryan? Marcia Clark goes, Paige was/is excellent, but Aubrey was the difference in this game. They needed her to step up big, and she did. I've been high on Aubrey G since last season. Phil and Rye pulled my previous comment receipts. I hope Aubrey can continue to shine.
I think Aubrey can really be the difference maker in a lot of these games. Definitely deserves to be in every starting lineup towards for the whole entire season. But I think Aubrey, she can do so many different things on both sides of the ball, and it's really what UConn needs: players to step up in a big way. She's a senior, so she has the experience on this team to kind of lead some of the freshmen along with Paige, along with Nika for the guards. So Aubrey can really be a difference maker in pretty much every single game that she's out there for And really, I think she can be the X factor for UConn for this whole season.
Gary Roundtree, being real, I said it time and time again. The X factor is the Berry. If she was next to South Carolina, Boston, or AJ, who plays for the WNBA champions, UConn would be killing teams inside. She is very, very sad to talk and watch her on the bench and on the team. I had to go there.
Yeah, at a 6'6" frame, there's not really much people can do. I mean, we saw it against UCLA with Lauren Betts. She's 6'7". When you have a player at that size down low, especially besides somebody like Aaliyah Edwards, who can really score the ball, is really dominant and aggressive inside the paint. Putting Amari next to her, if she would be able to, just get to that other level that we've seen in the past that unfortunately really hasn't been able to develop at her time in stores yet. That would be a tremendous help to this team, and it would probably push UConn to that extra level that we all know they can be at right now, and maybe the record would be different. Past seasons could be different, who knows, but it definitely would be a huge boost to this UConn lineup.
How about Paul DeSantis, Ryan? Paul DeSantis. Yeah, Paul DeSantis. Going to be a lot of first. They barely look like a top 25 team, not a top 10. They are going to get destroyed by Texas, and that should move them out of the top 25 for a big first. Like I said, I'm a huge Husky fan, and this breaks my heart. The old Huskies would have beaten this team by 40 points.
It's not gonna be easy on Sunday, especially going to Texas. It's definitely not gonna be easy. I'm not sure about dropping them all the way down to 15 spots, all the way out of the top 25, but there's probably a good chance that they creep towards that 20th mark in the AP poll if in fact they do lose to Texas. But I think we do have to remember, if indeed they do lose to Texas, that's all three teams they've lost to who are ranked inside of the top 5. So it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like UConn is losing to unranked opponents. They're losing to really good, high quality basketball teams. So like again, I said it before, that the schedule obviously wasn't going to be easy, and being on the road for a couple of these games certainly doesn't make it any easier.
All right, let's remind everybody, Ryan, here's the final grades. And again, not just to help yourselves out, the people that watch us, but to help Ryan and I out, it would be a huge favor to comment and leave a grade on this video, only because we have a special guest coming at the end of the season, right, Ryan? And to break down the whole season. So with that said, it will really help break down month by month, and it will help you out, Ryan. It will help me out, and it will help her out when she joins us at the end of the season. All right, Ryan, I'm going, to be honest with you, as far as, oh man, this is tough because obviously UConn is hardly never supposed to lose any, right? C minus, C minus. What do you have, Ryan? I mean, UConn over Dayton, North Carolina State over UConn, UConn over Maryland, UConn over Minnesota, and then they dropped one to UCLA, and then they turn around and bounce back against Kansas. C minus.
Yeah, I have kind of the same grade. I'm gonna go C plus. I think it's a pretty fair ranking to kind of have them in the C range. The month could have gone a lot better, but it could have also been a lot worse to lose to some of those unranked teams.
Yeah.
2 losses to top 25 teams isn't the end of the world. Hopefully, like I said, it's not 3 after Sunday, but I still have faith in a team. I still believe, and hopefully the team does too, because still a long season ahead of us.
All right, grades for November. They're in the books, Ryan, and we will be back with Ryan for the last check-in against Texas. Phil and Rye on Listen Up.